tourism is engaged on a number of fronts, and has been, as I said, has been engaged for decades on a number of fronts. For instance, with investments in education, supporting the Clarence Fitzroy Ryan College, for instance, in security with police training, in the courts, in disaster risk management. Canada was the main founder of the Caribbean climate the CRIF, the risk insurance facility that was founded 15 years ago or so, and Canada was the main founder with 25 million grant to put it in place. And during Irma, St. Kitts and Nevis was able to get $2.5 million out of that facility. So it is something that works. So those are the types of tools that we've been putting in place to help the region and St. Kitts. A few weeks ago, also on a different front, we have announced a grant to St. Kitts of $325,000 through the Caribbean Development Bank to help geothermal exploration. And I hope that this will definitely work well, and it will also bring a difference to St. Kitts and Nevis in the future in terms of economic and sustainable growth. So, with all that, we're very close to signature, very happy to be here. I would just like to thank the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and Minister Leiberg here present for your trust in that relationship that we continue to build together. Very happy to be here with the Canadian team and its partners to ensure that we will have that construction in the shortest possible time frame. And I hope to be here for the opening ceremony. Thank you. And one last thing, I would just like to offer the minister a small token to remember this day.
Thank you, Ms. Legault. And now our final, but certainly not least, and one of the most intrinsic individual in today's second peer contract signing ceremony, afford me the pleasure of inviting to the podium Minister with responsibility for SCASPA and Minister with responsibility for public infrastructure, post-urban development and transport, the Honorable Ian Liburd.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, Nadia Demin. And you know, it is said that all politics is local. So I want to let you know that Nadia, a state scholar in 2011, hails from my constituency in East Basseterre. And that lovely voice you heard sing the national anthem, I sing something like her. She's also from constituency number 1. So forgive me if I had to note that. In the process, I want to recognize my cabinet colleagues, the Honorable Lindsay Fitzpatrick Grant and Minister of Tourism et al. My other colleague, the Honorable Eugene Alistair Hamilton, who is Minister of Agriculture, and others. Senator Akila Byron, I do recognize you as well. And I believe that the High Commissioner of Canada to St. Kitts and Nevis, Marie Legault, needs special recognition, and I want you to give her a wonderful round of applause. Because when we first met, I recall some months ago, she opened her doors at her official residence and gave us a sumptuous dinner, I recall. And the following day, she opened the doors of the consulate for us to hold that very important meeting. So I want to place on record our sincere thanks for the support you continue to give to this project. I also, in the process, want to recognize the members of the board of directors of SCASPA who are here. It's important as well to recognize our financiers. I see the chairman of the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank, Mr. Alex Nisbet, and the general manager, Don Thompson. I also recognize the chairman of the council of the SIDF, Dr. Chatterton, the chairman and CEO of the TDC group of companies, Mr. Earl Kelly, permanent secretaries, and I see the former president of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Damon Hobson, and other members of the Chamber, permanent secretaries. I also recognize Raquel Brown, who is a very important link, a critical link in the development of our tourism here in St. Kitts. Members of staff, the SCASPA, also, of course, those of you from the media. It is my pleasure to bid you a very pleasant morning, all. 20 years ago, in mid-1997, I was at the time the incumbent CEO at SCASPA when we completed and commissioned the dedicated Cruise Pier complex as part of a massive undertaking, including the reclamation of approximately 25 acres of land, which started under the Kennedy Simmons administration. 20 years after, I stand before you as the minister with responsibility for SCASPA. And I don't think I stand in the name of Ian Patches Liburn. I stand in the name of Almighty God, who has blessed me with this opportunity to be a witness and be part of this momentous signing of the construction contract for the second Cruise Pier. I believe, however, it is imperative for all present, for those viewing and listening via ZZ radio and television, and via the internet world, and in particular those within the media. I believe it is important to provide an historical perspective on the second at Port Zante. Thus I crave your understanding. The records will reflect that discussions regarding the construction of this Cruise Pier began way back in 2012, in April to be exact, at the time when the government was in the middle of its 3-year IMF fiscal rebalancing and debt restructuring program. It was determined back then that neither SCASPA nor the government could consider undertaking such a large development without attracting a direct foreign investment partner. In this regard, J. Cashman Inc. was identified and engaged with a view towards establishing a public-private partnership as the most viable or financial viable, that should be, and relevant option that was available to SCASPA at that time. Now, it must also be noted that there was no expression of interest and there were no advertisements for this proposal. But after months of discussions and review, it was determined that a PPP option involving equity jointly from J. Cashman, Inc. and the SIDF with loan funds originating from both local and foreign banks was the most suitable solution for the financing of the second cruise pier. The estimated construction costs of the pier and all proposed upland works and other development costs amounted to US $32 million at that time. Financing for the project was expected to be done through the following syndicate: CIBC, US $10 million, J. Cashman Inc., $7.5 million, the SIDF, $7.5 million, and the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank, $7 million, totaling, as I said, US $32 million. On September 20th, 2013, SCASPA entered into a tripartite project development agreement with Cruise Port Development Limited, which comprised of joint equity partners J. Cashman Inc., the SIDF, and the federal government of St. Kitts and Nevis, to construct this second cruise pier at Port Zante, and as I said before, to undertake upland works at that site, to modernize the Amina Craft market, and construct an exclusive dispatching area for the taxis and pre-sold tours. On the date when the project development agreement was signed, there was also an understanding amongst all parties that all of the conditions precedent to making the PDA effective should be completed within 180 days after the signing of the agreement, and that good faith will prevail in the pursuance of these conditions. At the end of the 180-day period, March 20th, 2014 to be exact, two critical documents were not completed. The outstanding conditions precedent were the government performance guarantee and the lease of the seabed and riparian rights. The government performance guarantee was subsequently done via resolution in Parliament in December 2014. Nevertheless, back in July 2014, SCASPA was informed that J. Cashman Inc. had indicated that the project, that the PDA, the project development agreement, had expired and it no longer wished to be part of the project. And those of you who recall that all those barges and tugs disappeared overnight. J. Cashman Inc. also requested compensation of US $750,000 in hard costs after which it would hand over the drawings and technical reports. Attempts made by the then government to engage other private partners proved to be futile. But come February 2015, and a change in government, discussions were held with Bazarian International Financial Associates, BIFA, and the Canadian Commercial Corporation, CCC, a crown agent of the Government of Canada, regarding this government-to-government arrangement. On November 12, 2015, and with the approval of the Cabinet, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, through the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, etc., signed a memorandum of understanding with the CCC, which provided for government-to-government transactions for the development of public infrastructure. The second Cruise Pier was amongst the list of projects. Following the signing of the MOU, and after its perusal by the board of SCASPA, a resolution was then forwarded to the ministry, therein supporting the proposal from the CCC for financing and construction of this second Cruise Pier. On April 4, 2016, Cabinet considered a submission from my ministry outlining the rationale for the construction of the new Cruise Pier, and the submission also included the results from an analysis of the proposals presented by Bazarian International Financial Associates and the Canadian Commercial Corporation. Given the results of the analysis, a recommendation was made to Cabinet to engage the Canadian Commercial Corporation and JV Driver to design and construct the second Cruise Pier, and to assist with procuring project financing. Approval also sought to allow SCASPA to proceed with its recommendation. But the honorable members of Cabinet all agreed that a second Cruise Pier was indeed necessary, but requested an independent entity should review both proposals in order to ensure that the recommendation from the Board of Directors of SCASPA that was presented to Cabinet was made on a sound footing. For that reason, Cabinet, in its wisdom, decided that an independent review of the financial evaluation model should be undertaken. This was done by Ernst & Young, a global leader in assurance, tax, transaction, and advisory services. Upon completion of the EY review in September 2016, the Cabinet further decided that the public-private partnership or value for money analysis should be also done by EY. Pursuant to the aforementioned reports, and in accordance with the recommendation of the board of SCASPA, which my ministry accepted, the Cabinet agreed that SCASPA should enter into negotiations and thereafter a contract with the CCC. The clear advantages of this course of action was immediately evident to all, but in particular, the avoidance of procurement risk given to the government-to-government relationship, and also the performance guarantee being given by CCC, the Cruise Pier being built fit for the purpose for which it will be used. EY was also engaged to produce a confidential information memorandum, which provided a comprehensive analysis of the state of SCASPA, the macroeconomic and market landscape, the cruise market and competitive environment, projected revenue, and second pier financing. In conclusion, I want to state, I took the time to outline what we have been doing for nigh 2 years. We have exercised a great measure of financial prudence, responsibility, and diligence that is expected from and ordinarily demonstrated by our Team Unity Cabinet. As stated earlier, and it bears repeating, this second Cruise Pier project started way back in 2012 under the previous administration with an arrangement that would have resulted in a private entity. But this private entity, J. Cashman, Inc., would have owned the Cruise Pier for a period of 30 years. We must give God thanks that this arrangement did not materialize. Team Unity, in its wisdom, sought to explore various options to allow for the construction of the second Cruise Pier, one of which is this arrangement between the government of Canada and the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. And Madam High Commissioner, I'm from up the bay, as we call it. So I remember as a young boy with the Lightridge port, the Saguenay vessels came and anchored with the flour from Halifax, the codfish as well, and those boats came on a fortnightly basis. And I remember as well the Ministry of Agriculture, when the support was given in training on the cedar for fisher folk as well. And I think as City Minister of Agriculture, not in his head because we still have that farm program ongoing. So that relationship goes back really a long, long way. Now, you would have gleaned from what I said that there was a rigorous due diligence process of the two construction proposals. Cabinet, as I said, approved the recommendation to engage CCC as the prime contractor of the second Cruise Pier, and this decision was made since May in 2017. But SCASPA's legal and technical team spent in excess of 4 months negotiating the terms and conditions of the contract. Representing SCASPA is the legal firm of Mitcham and Benjamin, with support from Mayor Motley, Queen's Counsel of Barbados. And on the technical side is EY, who procured engineering expertise from Lee Young and Partners, a well-known engineering firm from Trinidad and Tobago. Further review was done by the Office of the Attorney General. Additionally, the cruise lines would have reviewed the plans, would have performed the relevant simulations, would have given recommendations and confirmed that the new and improved designs are fit for purpose. Reputable professionals in their areas of expertise examined the plans. Without a doubt, following this process, SCASPA must be confident that it now has a construction contract which is capable of withstanding any and all public scrutiny and a legal guarantee from the Canadian government that the pier once again will be built fit for purpose. It would be remiss of me if I did not mention the contract price, because there has been much chatter about the increase in construction costs from $32 million in 2012 to $43.2 million today. I wish to confirm and submit that the increase is justifiable. Firstly, 5 years have elapsed from 2012 to 2017. So no reasonable business mind can expect the cost to remain stagnant. The rationale behind the change in costs is well documented. There were many inefficiencies within the original designs cited in a review by a well-renowned engineering company, CH2M Hill. CH2M Hill cited the fact that dependent upon the weather, only one ship would have been able to berth at the pier because of the embedded rock on the starboard side of the pier. More importantly, the move from $32 million in 2012 to $41.7 million in May 2017, the date of the approval of CCC as primary contractors, was due, as I said, to the modification of the plans to allow the pier to accommodate 2 Oasis-class vessels, the largest cruise vessels afloat today. I should say to simultaneously accommodate those 2 vessels. These modifications included widening and lengthening of the pier, as well as additional dredging. The previous drawings would have resulted in a pier that would have been only able to accommodate 1 Oasis-class vessel at a time. This government, therefore, is one of vision and has ensured that the drawings were modified to address the growing size of the modern cruise vessels. Finally, the increase in costs from US $41.7 million in May 17 to $43.2 million today came about over the period of negotiations. This increase reflects the actual costs of the rising prices for steel and the spike in insurance premiums following the 2 Cat 5 hurricanes which we experienced a few months ago. There has been much talk about the financing as well, like the construction contract. The process of raising the financing has been very involved as well. SCASPA engaged EY to secure proposals from 8 institutions, locally and within the region, including the CIBC and the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank. Following a review of the proposals, it was determined that the best option was a syndicate arrangement with all local players. All local players. Financing in the amount of $48 million US has been secured to cover the construction of the second pier, upland development of Port Zante, and a tug. The syndicate players and the contributions are as follows. The St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank, US $34 million. Could you give the bank a round of applause? The Social Security Board, US $7 million. The Sugar Industry Diversification Foundation of St. Kitts Nevis, US $5 million. And the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla Trading and Development Company, we know them as TDC, US $2 million. So we are all local. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a long process, but a necessary one to ensure accountability, transparency, and prudent decision-making, all for the benefit of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I wish one more time to thank you, the Canadian High Commissioner, Marie Legault, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here this morning on this momentous occasion to witness the signing ceremony. I know you circumvented the issues with Liat. I won't tell them how you came, but you're here. And we want to thank you. I want to also state that this is a testament of the commitment of the Canadian government to this project with your presence and the improvement which you mentioned of our government-to-government relationships, which we hope will bear many more fruits in the future. And one of those we spoke many times is about our free access, and I'm sure that will come shortly. We depend on you, Madam High Commissioner. But I wish to thank Ernst & Young. I wish to thank as well a quiet resource who we had to contract. And I wanted to stand because I won't do justice to my presentation this morning if we did not recognize Tofida Stewart, former San Tofida. Tofida did not just walk away with her institutional memory and her professional experience at SCASPA, but wanted to give back and ensure that this project came to fruition. I want to recognize and thank, of course, the chairman, Don Moncampo, Don Sanateka Bow. We want to thank you for your strategic guidance given to the board. I see several board members. I see Borkham Hendrickson, stand and take a bow. Board members, officer, superintendent, our new secretary, stand and take a bow. Mr. James, Phyllis, and of course, my dear brother, Vincent Woods. I know you'll have a challenge. And how can we forget Terry? I miss Terry Adams. I almost said Terry as that, you know? And without these board members, we would not have been here. And the management, of course, we would not have been here as well. I recognize the CEO. It's our time to stand, Mr. James. You take your bow, right? And I want to thank all of you, the Ministry of Tourism as well, the Minister, Lindsay Grant. It's your time to take your bow, Mr. Grant. You have been all along our promotions. I see Raquel, you take your bow as well. You have to take your bow, Raquel. You have been along, and right? I haven't seen Steve Heights and others are off island, but these are the people that have made this project implementation possible. And I want to, in closing, say that we would be mobilizing, Mr. Contractor. I recognize JVD, Richard. He's here, has dropped off since we started negotiating. And of course, Anthony. And as Luke intimated, in 18 months, we should be complete with this project and have it definitely bearing force majeure, have it for our 2019 cruise season. I want to thank you all, and I wish you a pleasant good day, and I crave your continued support for this project. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. And now for the end, the grand highlight of today's gathering. Allow me to invite Chairman of SCASPA's Board of Directors, Mr. Don M. Bonkampa, and CCC Representative, Mr. Luke Allery, for the official contract signing ceremony between the St. Christopher Air and Seaports Authority and the Canadian Commercial Corporation, the prime contractor for the construction of St. Kitts' second cruise pier on this day, Wednesday, 22nd November, 2017. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Allery. And ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed the official signing contract for the construction of the second cruise pier. We'd like to thank you for coming out today to be a witness to this memorable moment. And we have refreshments at the back. You can help yourself. Minister? Oh yes, we have the question and answer segment from the media. Questions? Any questions? Sure.
I wanted to know how you're going to deal with the other cruise ships that are coming while you're doing the work on the other side, seeing that it's in close proximity.
Hello? There is a plan, but I can take your question into consideration and provide you with a more detailed answer afterwards. Okay.
Good afternoon, good morning. Did the new construction of the new pier also consider the issues pertaining to wind, the wind direction? I know that's something that is a concern for the current pier. When ships are docking, if the wind is heavy, blowing in a particular direction, that it could affect ships when they are actually docking. Will this new cruise pier be resilient to that, or were those concerns taken into consideration?
That's my understanding from the design consultations and reviews that we've done over the past several months.
We in fact presented the contractors, Jerry Driver and other his technical support, made presentations to the technical committee of the FCCA, and they in fact did simulation models of these ships alongside, so that has been taken into consideration, just to add.
Good morning. Reginald Francis of Sinkis Marine Works. Minister, you mentioned earlier that the previous I'm sorry, I guess we're getting feedback when I was back there. On your comment earlier in your speech, you mentioned that the previous contractor, Jake Cashman, was awarded or was introduced without any advertising. But I also heard in the same speech that this project will benefit locals with the construction aspect and the finished product. So I'm hoping that this go around, with the improvements we have, that local contractors in the marine sector may have opportunities at bidding at things that they are capable of doing. Just throwing it out.
Well, as I am aware, the main contractor has already invited expressions of interest to subcontractors. And one of the things we insisted and continue to insist, that local input will be absorbed. Matter of fact, the CCC arrangement, government arrangement, provides for Canadian solutions, but it in fact permits us to ensure that there are local contractors that would take part. I know you're applying for your own contracting firm, but I can assure you that Richard is here and he's quite accessible, so perhaps you can make your pitch thereafter.
Jason Davis of ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. Two questions. One, when is construction expected to begin? And secondly, regarding the funding that has been committed by various local entities, have the monies already been pledged, or is this a commitment to pledge?
I think we're fairly optimistic that we can get mobilizing very early in the new year, if not sooner. So I think we're very optimistic. This is an important phase, getting the contract. We still have to kind of finalize all the arrangements with all the subcontractors and so forth. The financing, I understand, is well underway, and that's the next trigger. But as soon as that is finalized, then we're ready to start, and we are ready to start and get mobilizing, I can assure you.
I see you looking at me. It's about the pledge you said?
Yes.
I can assure you that the negotiations with regards to all the players, or the main player within the syndicate, the National Bank, and the lawyers are still meeting. There's only one issue that has just been agreed a few days ago, I am advised. And I'm also advised that that wouldn't impede disbursement of any funds once this contract is signed.
Okay, German Abel, SKN Vibes. Going back to the expected start date, can you just narrow it down for us when you guys expect to finish mobilizing to actually begin construction work on the project?
As I said, I'm fairly optimistic that we can mobilize early in the new year, if not sooner. But I can't give you a date until we have the financing in place. That is the requirement. It's an 18-month process from that time once we mobilize.
Again, I can add that I know Luke is a little bit diplomatic, and rightly so. But I can add, as I said, we have the assurance from the main financier that once this contract is signed, then interim funds will be disbursed. The implementation schedule, or the schedule of works that I saw, provided for mobilization, I think it's a 3-month period maximum between January and March. During that time, then the marine contractors or subcontractors would also be engaged. I don't know if Richard wants to come forward and just clarify that. Richard.
Yeah, based on the current schedule, will be a loud voice. I'm Richard Jones from JV Driver, the Canadian construction group, working in tandem with CCC to deliver the project. Based on the current schedule and based on the National Bank and the financing, we're currently scheduled to begin mobilizing early January. We will be on site working, but before the end of January. One of the first major activities will be the dredging, which should begin in February based on the current schedule. You'll see us on site in January, and main works will start in February.
Okay, that's a quick follow-up. Did the expectation is this project to be completed by the 2019 cruise season? Have you guys taken into consideration the hurricane seasons with any delays or anything of that nature? Because we've seen what happened in September. 2 hurricanes basically pushed back everything. And God forbid, should we have another one maybe next year? What sort of, have you guys taken into account any delays that might occur that would affect it from being completed by the 2019 cruise season?
It is part of the contingency over the 18-month period. So it is, but if Richard wants to add something on that, but it's part of the contingency that we have over the 18-month period.
Yeah, potential downtime for hurricanes has been factored into the schedule. So I guess then you're going to ask me, well, if there's no hurricanes, will it be delivered sooner? The answer to that is yes.
Lashan Dixon, Second Series Observer. I was wondering if we can get an idea as to where the second cruise pier would be located, and also the dimensions of the pier.
You can look at the picture up there, and I'll let Richard comment on the some of the more technical aspects.
Where it's located? It's on the map. So it's the one to the left, obviously, is the new pier. Is that adequate? Sorry?
Is west to the current pier?
It's located, as you see here, looking at it from this angle, just to the left of the current Port Zante.
Yeah, but I was speaking of something more specific, like a site that the average individual could relate to and say, okay, it's going to be here, from here to here. Yeah, I understand that. Yes, I understand that, but
It's just to the south of the marina. That's a location that can be referenced. If we go outside, I can show you.
McLean Hobson, Director of Maritime Affairs. Ultimately, the pilots would be the one to pilot the vessels safely alongside the pier. I want to know to what extent they have been consulted in all of this.
We understand without long discussions with the cruise lines that they themselves, the captains of the cruise lines that we've been having dialogue with, have discussed that with the pilots here, that they know and use regularly. So we have left that with the cruise lines to determine and factor that into the design, the updated design.
Okay.
Andre Huey, SK Newsline. Minister, regarding the pier itself and the entrance of where the tourists actually disembark and actually enter onto Port Zante, will there be any form of development there, particularly where, if you compare the current pier now, you enter Port Zante, you're into the stores and other areas there. With this new pier, will there be any form of development in that particular area for tourists coming off ships in that docking off that pier?
I don't know if I understand the question, but SCASPA has engaged a firm that actually did the traffic and people flow, right? And some parts of that particular area, or one part of that particular area, sorry, would be used as the staging area for taxis, independent, and in particular for tours, pre-sold tours. In terms of the land area there, it's not a lot of land available. But based on the input from the Ministry of Tourism and all the other stakeholders in terms of the shoreside, even the agents as well, in terms of the shoreside operations, the input that they gave to our consultants, I don't remember the name, BM something, or Beer, right? They gave the input, and based on the input, they considered issues like security, they considered issues like, as I said, the flow of passenger flow, and also the traffic flow, using a count and a scientific approach, rather, to deal with it. In terms of the areas that were requested, for example, by tourism, right? In an ideal situation, we would have needed more land. So what the consultant has produced is in the context of the available land space that is there.
So currently then it will just be then traffic flow to get them to taxi or tour operators as opposed to, stopping by there for anything?
Well, there are currently there are drop-off points at Port Zante to the east, for example, but there's also a drop-off point to the west. But most taxi drivers go to the east. But with that new pier and with the volume of passengers that are going through there, we anticipate that on the west side as well would generate more business, if that's the point you're getting to.
Authority and the Canadian Commercial Corporation, the prime contractor for the construction of St. Kitts' second cruise pier. Thanks for coming. Yes, once again, we have refreshments at the back. We invite you to enjoy. Yep. Thank you.